On October 24, 2025, the Supreme Court delivered a unanimous decision, dismissing Mexico's lawsuit against American firearm manufacturers. This wasn't just about guns, it was a test of national sovereignty and the reach of American law. The court's 9-0 ruling declared that U.S. courts cannot be used by foreign governments to dictate American policy or hold U.S. businesses liable for crimes committed abroad. Mexico's lawsuit sought to blame U.S. gunmakers for cartel violence, but the court affirmed that American laws are made by and for Americans. This outcome is celebrated as a victory for U.S. independence, sending a clear message that foreign legal attacks on American industries will not stand. The decision provides security for American businesses, especially in the firearms sector, ensuring they're not held responsible for criminal misuse of their products overseas. The unanimity of the ruling underscores its authority, showing that national sovereignty and the protection of lawful commerce are foundational, not partisan. This precedent will be difficult to challenge, solidifying protections for American enterprise and constitutional order. To understand the Supreme Court's decision, we must look at Mexico's lawsuit. Facing relentless cartel violence, Mexico sued U.S. gun manufacturers, claiming they knowingly enabled firearms trafficking across the border. The lawsuit argued that gunmakers' designs and marketing targeted criminals, making them liable for violence in Mexico. This legal move challenged a core American law that shields manufacturers from such claims. U.S. gunmakers countered that their products were sold legally and that criminal misuse abroad was beyond their control. The case became a flashpoint of foreign governments' public safety concerns versus an American industry's right to lawful commerce. Mexico sought not just damages, but also court-ordered changes to U.S. business practices, effectively trying to impose foreign policy through American courts. Many saw this as an attempt to force gun control on the U.S. by judicial means. Ultimately, the case was about whether a foreign nation could use U.S. courts to shape American policy and regulate a constitutionally protected industry. The Supreme Court's rejection of Mexico's lawsuit was clear and rooted in established law. The justices focused on a key question: can a foreign government sue a U.S. manufacturer for crimes committed with their products abroad? Their answer: no. The Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, PLCAA, shields gunmakers from such lawsuits. PLCAA, passed in 2005, was designed to prevent the firearms industry from being bankrupted by lawsuits over criminal misuse of their products. The court found that Mexico's claims didn't fit any exceptions to PLCAA. The justices emphasized their role was to apply the law as written, not to solve international policy disputes. Congress had spoken clearly: gunmakers aren't liable for crimes committed by others. By dismissing the case, the court reinforced the authority of Congress to regulate commerce and set legal boundaries. The ruling sends a message: politically motivated lawsuits can't override the will of the people's representatives. The PLCAA was central to the Supreme Court's decision. Enacted in 2005, PLCAA responded to lawsuits that threatened to bankrupt gunmakers for crimes committed with their products. The law doesn't grant blanket immunity, but blocks lawsuits blaming manufacturers for the criminal acts of others. Like car or bat makers, gun companies aren't liable for unforeseeable misuse of their products. PLCAA allows lawsuits only for defective products or illegal sales. In Mexico's case, the court found no violation of these exceptions. The ruling strengthens PLCAA, framing it as a protection of traditional legal principles, not a special privilege. This decision ensures the firearms industry can operate without constant threat of crippling lawsuits over crimes they didn't commit. Though based on statute, the court's decision has major implications for the Second Amendment. By shielding gunmakers, the court indirectly protected Americans' right to keep and bear arms. Had Mexico prevailed, gunmakers could have faced bankruptcy or been forced to limit what firearms are available. The court noted that AR-15s and similar rifles are in common lawful use, a key point in Second Amendment law. This recognition strengthens the case against state-level bans on popular firearms. The ruling affirms that owning modern firearms is both culturally and legally legitimate. By protecting manufacturers and acknowledging the commonality of these guns, the court keeps the Second Amendment practical and relevant. This decision will be cited as a cornerstone defense against efforts to restrict access to widely owned firearms. The Supreme Court's ruling reshapes gun control litigation in America. For years, activists tried to regulate guns through lawsuits, hoping to force changes the legislature wouldn't pass. The court's defense of PLCAA cripples this strategy, making similar lawsuits unlikely to succeed. Future plaintiffs, cities, states, or foreign nations now face a powerful precedent. The path to holding gunmakers liable is now limited to rare exceptions in PLCAA. Gun control advocates may have to shift their focus from courts to Congress. The decision clarifies that major policy changes must come through elected representatives, not the courts. State attempts to sidestep PLCAA will likely face tough legal challenges, reinforcing federal law's supremacy. This Supreme Court decision is more than a win for one industry. It's a defense of American sovereignty. It establishes that foreign governments can't use U.S. courts to impose their laws or policies here. This protects all American businesses engaged in lawful commerce. For gun owners, it ensures the right to bear arms isn't eroded by lawsuits targeting the industry. The court's recognition of common-use firearms strengthens constitutional protections nationwide. The ruling is a civics lesson. Major policy changes should come from Congress, not the courts. It affirms the judiciary's role is to interpret, not create, law. By upholding the rule of law and tying responsibility to one's own actions, the court defends a core principle of American justice. This is a victory for legal clarity, constitutional rights, and the sovereignty of the American people.